Hey guys, welcome back. Eric Gubler Podcast. We got Drew Bahoravitch in the studio. We've now renamed the pad, the real estate pad.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing a lot more content on real estate stuff, and so you're the first one to kind of roll out the real estate content that we're going to start doing for people to be able to help them understand the real estate world more in all aspects. So Drew is a top lender. In fact, you're at even ranked nationally from what I've heard.
Top 1%.
Top 1% in the nation.
5 years.
Yep. But you're here in St. George, Utah in the last 5 years. That's crazy, dude. So this is a guy that does a lot of loans. This is a guy that knows a crap ton. You have other lenders coming to you that have issues with their loans, and they just say, hey, can you help me out? Yep. You gotta send them an invoice after, right? This is for all the consulting that you do. But he's a good friend of mine, and he's a very, very intelligent person. He's good at what he does. He's got a great family. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about the real estate world, rates, mortgages, pros, cons, how to leverage. Maybe we get into the investing world a little bit. Yep. Let's just start it off. So in the real estate world right now, everybody should know rates have gone from, they were in high twos, low threes. And now we've been hovering around 7 for a couple of years.
About June 15th, 2022.
Yeah, 2 years.
Rates shot up 1.5% in 2 days.
Yeah.
And then they kind of kept going up from there. So
I've never seen that in the 8 years that I've been an agent.
Yep.
And from what I've heard before that, it's super rare.
Yeah, this market's unique. I've talked to loan officers, realtors that have been in the business since 2006, 7, 8. They went through all of that.
Yeah.
And they said this market's very different.
Yeah.
There's just not as much transactions. I think it's an inventory issue. I think it's a rate issue. I think it's we had it too good. So nobody's motivated to sell, because when you have that 2% rate, it's hard to want to sell, walk away from that.
Is it a government issue? I hear that all the time. Do you feel like the government do you think they did it wrong? Did they raise it too fast? Did they not stop it soon enough?
The bigger problem is they didn't stop it soon enough.
Okay.
But if you look at the whole political landscape, we had a presidential election end of 2020, which 2020 is when the rates started getting good. The Fed had really started pumping money in to subsidize and keep people buying houses, so they pushed the rates lower. We have a new election. We get a new president, January 2021. Mm-hmm. It's political suicide to come into office and immediately start raising rates. Yeah. He couldn't do it.
Yeah.
He had to say, all right, let's get in. Let's keep things good.
He didn't want to do it.
As long as we can.
It would have made him look bad.
Yeah.
It's not that he couldn't. He just didn't want to, because it would have made him look bad.
He could have, but it was political suicide.
For sure.
He'd have no chance in this election had he done that.
Yeah.
But now we're suffering the consequences. Yeah. We had it too good for too long. They should have pulled back on how much the Fed was dumping in throughout all of 2021. But I get why we didn't, but now we're paying for it.
Yeah. Now we've been saying, in fact, I've even seen it up as high as 8.5.
Yeah.
And now it used to be where you didn't even have to buy down points, which probably need to explain for some people. But before, when you get a loan, you didn't have to buy down points automatically. Now you get a loan, you have to, right? Essentially, or else it's going to be a crazy.
Yeah. And a big part of that is because these investors know rates are going to come down.
That's it.
So you're only going to have the loan for 1-2 years. So the investors, if they allow you to close a loan without paying them points, paying a hard cost up front.
A point meaning a percent.
Yeah. One point is 1% of your loan amount as a fee at closing.
So let's give an example for people. So let's say they're getting a $500,000 loan.
Yep. So 1 point on a $500,000 loan would be $5,000 that you'd pay at closing to get a particular interest rate. And you can pay, I have people that'll pay 3 or 4 points on a $500,000 loan. So they'll pay $15,000 to $20,000 just to get a lower interest rate, to get that payment where they want it to be. Oftentimes that is, seller is paying some of that.
Yeah.
It's not always right out of their pocket.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But what you're saying though, is the investor needs that point up front. Why?
Because the loan's going to get paid off in 1 to 2 years. And so taking just the interest of 7, 8%, wherever that rate falls, investors want to make 10 to 12%. Yep. And so by collecting a point, it helps them make a little bit more money.
So they just pocket that up front.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That makes sense. So now they're charging that because they know people are going to refinance soon.
Yep.
Let's move into that for a second. When we were in 2022 and we started raising, People were saying right when it started to get up into the 6.5s, people were like, don't worry, about 12 months, it's going to come down by the end of the year. Now here we are, 2024, middle of the year. We're in June. It's like, well, we're the end of June. We're almost starting July, but is it really? I mean, could it be 3 years, Drew? Could it be 5 years? Could it be 10 years? I mean, what do you really think? Because I think there's a lot of people that blow smoke, and I've stopped saying it as much because it's just drug on, and I don't want to tell people something that's false. What is your thought on when interest rates are going to drop?
It's tough. It's a tough question to answer because there's so many moving parts. And I'm going to go back to this, a presidential election.
Yep.
That could change Fed policy overnight, could change who the chairman of the Fed is overnight, who comes in with a whole new plan. The current Fed, that's the Federal Treasury, their plan is to slowly attack inflation and unemployment. So their goal right now is the economy's been too good, too strong for too long, which causes high inflation and low unemployment. They want unemployment up closer to, I believe their target is 4%, and they want inflation down to 2%. And so they need the economy to suffer so that they can bring rates down. So they are literally trying to kill the economy.
Yeah.
But part of the problem is, and I had a buddy I talked to just the other day, he was complaining, this was a month or two ago, that rates keep going up. What's going on? And I was like, well, you remember how you just hired somebody because you're breaking ground on this new project? And he's like, yeah. I was like, you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
We need you to stop hiring people. Yeah. We need you to stop creating jobs. And he's like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. I was like, they're literally trying to stall the economy before they can let it get going again, because we don't want inflation too high. Otherwise, the value of your dollar just lessens faster and faster.
Is that the real problem? Because I don't feel like that's the root of the problem. I just feel like that's the smoke. That like there's a fire somewhere, and that's just the result. Do you feel that that's true? Is it that the government has mismanaged our economy for years, or do you feel like it's just what they're telling us?
Well, I think they mismanaged it in 2021 very bad. The PPP loans, did people actually spend that on keeping people employed?
Heck no.
Some of them. But
very small amount.
But a very small amount. I also know all those stimulus checks we got. How many people went out and bought new iPhones?
Everybody, or something like that was depreciating and doesn't. Yeah, for sure.
And so the government printing money, that's another way to increase inflation. And so I think there was major mismanagement.
That was Trump.
It started a little bit with Trump in 2020, but it continued in 2021. Okay. Again, it was political suicide if the Biden administration tried to pull back the reins and stop doing that, because that's the whole Democratic Party thing, is we want to give out free money. Mm-hmm. And so it was mismanagement, but I think it was also just part of our political process here in America, that an election happened right in the middle of a turbulent time with our economics, and we changed presidencies, and now we all got to pay the price.
Yeah.
And it would have happened either way.
Yeah.
Had you had a Democrat in the White House in 2020 and it switched to Republican, they would have done the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was already done. It was inevitable, it seemed like. Yeah. I think of this next, like, you and I both deal with people that it really all comes down to their mindset. At the end of the day, whether they're going to get into a house or not, whether they're going to invest their money in real estate or just buy their first home or buy another home. There's plenty of people that qualify, actually. And I'm surprised how many people qualify and almost over qualify, but they don't like their payment and they think they're going to be strapped too tight, and they don't end up doing anything, buying that investment or buying their first home or whatever. I'll say first home, because if they're already in a home, I get that. Like if you're just comfortable and you just want to stay there, okay, cool. If you don't have to, but just getting into a home, my opinion, and I've seen the stats, on average, when you're retired, if you own a home in America, your net worth is hundreds of thousands of dollars more than if you rent your entire life. Yep. On average, across the board, it builds wealth, period. So I'm a huge advocate for just buying one home. Then just think if we can buy 10 or 20 or 30 or whatever we get to by the time we're 50. I think that's awesome. But a lot of people they'll get stuck. And I've seen it for 8 years when you could buy a townhome here in St. George for like $200,000. Now those are $450, or $400. Still today, like 400 or 380.
Oh yeah. I remember when the Hidden Valley townhomes were 120,000.
Yep.
And they're what, 390 now? I think
Yep.
the recent sale was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because it's always high when you buy. Like people are always thinking it's so high. And I've heard it year after
Since
year.
2013, every year I've been in the business.
It's never changed.
Overvalued. The prices are going to go down. It's overvalued. Prices are going down.
We're going to have a crash. We're going to have a crash. It's too good.
Have we even seen a down year, even in these past couple of years?
No, not really. I mean, we've come down since COVID was nuts. We've come down a little bit. We haven't crashed.
Yeah.
No.
And I think it's more a flat line.
It's more flat line right now.
Numbers, it's not down 5% or 10%.
No, nothing crazy.
Here in St. George, we're pretty flat.
I think we came off of a high, we leveled, and now we're flatlining.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there. My biggest thing is, though, when we look at mindsets of people, I think is everything. It's the story that you tell yourself. And I think this is where the self-development world and real estate and wealth connect. Is the story that you tell yourself will determine what your life is like when you're 50 years old, 60 years old, for sure. But now is the time. And when I say now is the time, it's when you're in your teens, it's when you're in your 20s, it's when you're in your 30s, it's when you're in your 40s. Now is the time, right? If you don't do it now, then you're not going to be ready when you're 50, 60, 70. So what do you see? Because the truth is you get more pre-quals and applications than I deal with as far as buyers go, because I deal with buyers and sellers. And you're like the hub you're working with multiple agents, multiple different buyers. What is, in your opinion, the biggest things that are keeping people back from pulling the trigger, or just the thing that actually gets them over the hump and gets them to buy a home? What are your thoughts?
So my first thought on that is, one, they try to outsmart the market, and you'll never outsmart the market.
Yeah.
So I did my bachelor's degree in finance. I have an MBA from Arizona State University with an emphasis in finance. I've played with the stock market. We've done courses where I took $10,000 and in 3 weeks I actually grew it to 16 grand at SUU. The most anybody's ever made in that course. But here's the thing. I'm not smarter than the market.
Yeah.
I could not consistently do that day in and day out for the rest of my life. But when people go to buy a house, they're so caught up on timing the market and being smarter than the market that they think they have to know everything and every little thing, and they are smarter than anybody who owns a home.
Yeah.
That they want to buy it low and sell at the peak.
Yeah.
This is a house. This is where you're going to live. So the first misnomer that I see a lot of is people think they're smarter than the market. And so they're coming in trying to time the market.
Right.
And it's as you probably learned through your real estate investments and everything else, it's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market.
Absolutely.
Holding that home for 10, 15, 20 years.
I always tell people 10. If you can get in the market, there's never been a decade where somebody could lose in the last 50 years.
Yep.
There's never been a time where you could lose. Somewhere in that 10-year frame, you will double your money. You will 2x at least your money. So it's, in my opinion, it's not going to change.
Yep.
The data, I think, supports that it's going to be the same and that it's only going to get better. And there's so much, as far as like demand goes, we have low inventory and a ton of demand.
Yep. Builders couldn't build fast enough to keep up with the demand.
No.
There's such a shortage.
If and when, even if it's 5 years from now, rates go down, I think it's when. It's just, let's not put a time frame on it.
Yeah.
Real estate has to go up. And so it may not make sense logically now, and people get so hung up on right now. And I'm surprised how many people, it's just like, it still kind of makes sense now, but they can't see past. I really think, Drew, that they're not even looking past like 2 months.
Yeah.
They're thinking their payment every month, and they're like, ooh, next month's going to suck.
The big thing about real estate investment is you can leverage that investment. Okay. You can't leverage your stock investment.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you took $10,000 today and you threw it in the stock market and you made 10% on that money this year, you made an extra $1,000.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a good return in the stock market. That's better than the market would average. Okay.
Yep.
But if you took 10 grand and you went and bought a $200,000 house,
yep,
and that house goes up by 5% this year, You also made 10 grand. But you also paid down the principal on your loan.
Yep.
You've also now got a fixed mortgage payment. Your landlord's not going to come to you and raise your payment.
Right.
And you still own this investment that 5% doesn't sound that sexy. But over time, that's why over 10 years, now you have a $200,000 asset growing 5% per year for the next
average.
10 years.
Yep.
Instead of next year on that now $11,000 you put in the stock market. Cool. Now you have $12,100.
Yep.
Well, now you've got a $210,000 house and you're up to $212,000. So it just grows so much faster. Plus you're paying down principal.
Yep.
Plus you get the tax write-offs. Like there's so much benefit to home ownership.
I hope people are understanding this, because this is so huge. There's no other investment I've ever seen that's so stable. I get that Bitcoin, you can go crazy if you're lucky. I get that in the stock market, you can go crazy. If you throw in enough money, you risk it. But real estate is so stable, so steady. And what you're saying is so true. On average over a 10-year period, the market is going to appreciate about 5%. So if you, in 10 years on a $200,000 home that you may put 10 grand down on or something like that.
Yep.
You're going to be, and I don't know, this is just for numbers, because it's hard in St. George to find something that's 200,000, but go with us here. You're going to make $100,000 in appreciation in 10 years. 100 grand plus the appreciation, plus the tax benefits, and you're just living in it.
Plus your mortgage is probably paid down 50 grand.
Right.
Plus, okay, so you made 100 grand in 10 years. What was your initial investment?
10 grand.
$10,000.
Yep.
So you made 1,000% in 10 years.
Yep.
So now let's back that up annually. 1,000 divided by 10. You made 100% per year on your investment.
Yep.
How much risk would you have to take in stocks or Bitcoin or all these other things to double your money every year?
And when I run numbers on stuff, Drew, it's always somewhere, when I put all of it together, 80%, like 75, 85%, like right in that range where you're going to make, when you add it all up over 10 years, you're making on your money. There's just not a return out there. So then I go, well, what if you owned 2 homes and 5 homes? Like I said earlier, what if you own 10 homes? Yep. Like, what if you could just keep those? I even have gotten into this mindset recently, Drew, where it's like, there's some people that are this way, like old timers. A lot of them are this way, and they're crushing it now. And people say, "Oh, you're so smart." When they bought their houses, they were breaking even. A lot of these guys, they weren't even making cash flow. My opinion on cash flow is it keeps, especially if it's an older home, it just keeps it alive. Yep. Like it just helps. It helps cover the cost of repairs, and to where you can keep updating the home.
Yeah, cash flow. So on an investment, cash flow is important because if the market dips, it makes it so you still don't have to worry about the payment. Right, exactly. So even if you can net zero on cash flow, exactly, rental investing is not mainly about the cash flow. It's about that appreciation. Yep. It's about that 10, 15-year outlook.
That's how I'm.
And if you're working with a real estate advisor, they're going to probably at 10, 15 years say, hey, you now have $150,000 of equity. Let's sell this and go get 2. Yeah. And let's now do it again. We'll hold on to those for 10, 15 years. And then we'll sell those and go get 4. Yep. So if you're in your 30s, by the time you're 50, you could have 5 rental properties off just initially purchasing 1.
Right, right. Call me crazy on it, but I look at that. If I break even over 10 years, which it wouldn't be, you wouldn't, but I don't even look at it as I need that money. Like everybody, there's so many people in the investment world that I talk to that are just like, I want to retire by the time I'm 30 or 35 or 40. And then all I have to do is go buy all these properties, Drew. And then that will replace my active income. I'm like, I mean, cool, but that's just not my mindset. My mindset is way longer term than that. And the whole idea of retirement at 35 sounds retarded to me. And here's the other thing. I just got to say this, Drew.
I don't plan on retiring, just for the record.
No.
Like I have fun working and investing and doing all the things I do.
Yeah.
Why would I stop?
Most people that I think crush it, I've seen they're in their 60s, 70s, they don't stop.
Yeah.
Because it's the fulfillment is in the journey. It's not in the destination. And it's really not even about the money. It's just kind of a game of Monopoly at that point.
When I think a lot of people, retirement's a lifestyle of being able to come and go and do what I please. Well, yeah. I've kind of created that life I'm living while I'm actively working.
Yeah.
Why do I need to retire?
Yeah.
Like if I can pick up and go to Disneyland.
And what is retirement?
Like, yeah.
What is retirement? Like I think people think to themselves that retirement means I never have to work again. Hello. Like you're going to put work into somewhere. Like if you don't, you will go crazy. You cannot sit and drink martinis on the beach for the rest of your life and be okay.
Or you'll, like what I've seen from a lot of my parents' friends, health problems.
Yeah.
As soon as they retire, if they don't have a purpose, something they're chasing and trying to attain,
we have to.
They get cancer, they have major medical issues.
Because I almost feel like they create it so that there's something for them to do, something to worry about.
Whether they create it or God creates it, but
I don't know.
It's put in their path to give them something to focus on.
This is the last thing I want to say on that retirement thing. I see people in their 30s that say, we replaced our active income and now we're fully retired, working our investment property. Dude, they're working 40 hours a week on their investment properties because they won't hire any property managers. They're doing all the fix-ups themselves. And they just want to post it on Instagram and say, we're retired. I'm like, good hell. No, you're not.
You're working as a property manager.
Yes, you are working. And so I wish that we would just stay away from that, where we just go, what do I want? What do I actually want life to look like? Let's just say that. Quit the BS and trying to look a certain way for the gram. Just freaking know your numbers, go get in the market, try to be safe with it. But real estate to me is one of the safest investments that anybody can ever make.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I agree on the point of do what makes you happy, right? Like I love Gary V because he's all about, look, if you're comfortable and happy making $40K a year, do it. He's not saying, I'm not saying you need to make $500,000 a year to be happy and to be successful. Write out what makes you look successful. And if maybe that means you got to make $5 million a year.
Yeah.
Because you want a vacation and big yachts and you want all this and drive a Bentley and all that. Yeah. That's cool. Good for you. Go do it for yourself if that's truly what you want and not what Instagram wants for you.
Yeah. Yes, totally. I think the other thing with Gary V stuff that I'm just going to add to it, and I think he would agree, is it doesn't really matter how much money you're making. It doesn't matter what industry you're in as long as you're happy, but also that you just go all in. Yep. And going all in to me looks like this, Drew. There's stories in everybody's minds of like, I want to do that, but something's holding him back.
Yeah.
Some story. And it's a story of fear that's holding him back. I could lose this. This is going to happen. And all of that is they're never living in the present. They're always projecting fear in the future, but it's an illusion because it hasn't happened yet. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, it gives them the story to talk about, the dream to talk about.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get stuck there because if they actually try to execute their dream, then what's left to dream about? Yeah. What's left to talk about at Christmas about, this big project I'm working on? If they actually go out and try it and have some failures along the way and it doesn't work out, now they feel like less of a person because they don't have that dream. Whereas in my book, cool, you can cross that dream off. It didn't work out. Let's pivot and find a new one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people are so scared of, that's a good point though. Like, what if I don't have something after this one? And I think you'll always find something. I think that we're just wired that way. But there's always stories. Everybody's different. But I think also with that, we all struggle with the same stuff in I guess 10 to 15 different stories that we all struggle with. Just pick a couple of them, and then this person has the other couple. But as a whole, we all struggle with maybe like 10 to 15. It's not like unlimited stories. They all kind of boil down to the same few, and it has to do with fear.
Yep. And
it's projecting into the future. So, I mean, I want to go here too, because we're talking about loans, mortgages, high interest rates. We're talking about the current market. Like we work together quite a bit, and sometimes we have people that we work with that focus so much on how much money they need to save. So let's say they're making $5,000 a month between husband and wife, and they qualify for a mortgage of like $2,500, okay, or 24, somewhere in there, zero debt.
Yep.
But they're like, oh, that straps me so tight because this is what we hear, right? And agree or disagree.
Yep.
Groceries are expensive. Entertainment, we don't even go out anymore because it's so expensive. We don't get to see movies, whatever. Our rent right now is $1,000 a month. Why would we go up to $2,500?
Yeah.
And then think, I would have to find a way just to barely make it by to squeeze, reduce my expenses by $300 a month, $400 just to have a little cushion. And so they focus so much on with that $5,000 that's limited. Okay. You can't really cut dollar in half, really. Like you can 50 cents, but like at some point you can't cut a penny in half, right?
Yep.
And so like they just focus so much on how much money they need to save in a month that they never even consider the opposite, that there's infinite amount of value in money that they can be able to go and get all the time. Why do people do that? Your opinion, you see it way more than me. Why are people doing that? Is it a mindset issue? Is it a school issue? And is it our teachers? Is it our parents? What is it?
I would say it's a combination of all those. So number one, it's a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
That there's only so much out there that I can acquire, that I can do, that I can make, and their confidence just isn't there to go out and do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's there.
Yeah.
Like anybody can go out and make whatever they want to make. They just have to go put in the work and figure out how to add value to somebody else's life. But they get too caught up, and I think part of it is the way we were raised, right? A lot of our parents are baby boomers, and their parents lived through the Great Depression.
Right.
So those teachings from those penny pinchers who lived through the Great Depression passed on to our parents, and some of those habits passed on to us.
Yeah.
But I do feel like our generation with social media and anybody can literally go start an influencer page.
Yeah.
Like there's this wacky kid who's got these cool shoes and he's always talking about, look how cool I am. He's totally goofy, but I think he has over 1 million followers now.
Yeah.
Like, good for him, dude.
Yep.
That's awesome. So literally anybody can go add value and make money. But I think we're too caught up with, things we've been taught, things we were told. Dave Ramsey, he is to finance what Alcoholics Anonymous is for alcoholics.
Yeah.
Like he is an extreme for people who are in a ton of debt. His principles are sound. They're good. That's why he's made so much money off of this. But I guarantee you he doesn't follow his principles because he has so much money and he is invested and he is leveraged and he knows to be wealthy, you've got to use those tools out there. So, but yeah, turning back to scarcity mindset, I do think it comes from our parents. I think it comes from society. I think a lot of people have that fear that, well, if they don't get a nice as a house as the Joneses have, or is what they're posting on Instagram, then it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
And so they get a little bit too caught up in, I've got to have that new house. I've got to have those white cabinets.
Yeah.
Instead of
go
looking
paint
at
the damn things.
Yeah, right.
Our first place, Drew, was $113,000 condo that was 900 square feet.
Yep.
We made about $100,000 on that freaking thing.
Yep.
And yeah, COVID was an anomaly, but how do you predict them?
What color were the cabinets?
We painted them white.
Oh, you painted?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Paint them. But they were that golden oak, ugly color, early 2000s, 1900, late 1900s, or even all the 1900s. Yeah, they're that ugly golden oak color. But the thing is, it was not sexy.
Yep.
And we got in. It was a for sale by owner. We got into it, and we put in about $8,000. So we got into it about $10,000 below market after putting in about $8,000, fixing it up. But that's the thing we go back to, is it's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market. You never know when those things are going to happen. But everybody, how many conversations do we hear from older generations that are like, I had an opportunity to buy more and I didn't. I had opportunity to buy that thing and I didn't. I wish I would have. I wish I would have. Why? Because it just always is going to be that way. And we struggle as human beings to be able to see 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. So why not just trust the process? And just open people's, like, when it gets hard, know that all investors feel that fear. They're just better at pushing through it than you are.
Yep.
That's my opinion. I've talked to plenty of investors. I've invested. I own, I think, 11 doors right now. I every single one that I bought, I felt a little queasy.
Oh, yeah.
That's not a ton of homes compared to a lot of people out there. But I feel queasy.
Yeah.
Every time. And everybody that I've ever talked to that even owns 40, 50, 60, whatever, they feel it. Because it's there, but they're just better at pushing through it, I think, than most people.
Well, you've got to take risk, right? Like if you took all your money and just threw it in a savings account, which finally they're at 5%, which we can talk later about why I think it's good to have mortgage rates at 7%. It's actually healthy because we need our savings accounts to pay us a return. But traditionally they were 1% and 2%.
Oh.
You're not going to make any money investing in that. You've got to be willing to take some risk in order to grow your money.
Yeah.
And honestly, doing it when you're younger is better.
Yeah.
Doing it in your 20s and 30s, early 40s, take those risks, just go through that uneasy feeling of buying a rental and hold it. Go through that, because that's where you're going to grow wealth. And guess what? If you burn it all down to the ground and you bankrupt, you're still in your 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
That's why Gary Vee says, go take your risks in your 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
He didn't even start his, $400 million empire until he was in his 40s.
Yeah.
Plenty of time.
Plenty.
So
I think you got to take shots, like so many. It makes me sick a little bit, honestly. I sometimes will come home after talking to people that have such limited mindsets, and I just feel for them, because I just feel like, I think you would say that you'd have the same gift, but you just through experience and numbers and so just your experiences in life where they're going to end up. You can see it, because we know people at that stage, at the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. We work with all of them.
Yep. And
we know the habits that are going to get them wealthy, and we know the habits and mindset stories that are in their mind, that if they don't fix those now, where they're going to end up here. And that's all it freaking is. It's that simple to me.
Yep.
Like, all the other stuff works itself out. I think people that bought and they're in their 60s now and they have 100 rentals, so often we go, they were so smart. They're really not that smart.
Yep.
It's not that complicated. If you really break it down, like we kind of tried to here, the returns over a 10-year period is insane. What if you have it for 20 and 30? Now you got, let's say you have 10 homes that are all paid off, and now rent rates are at $3,500 for each home. You make it $35,000 a month in straight cash flow. You can do whatever the freak you want.
Yep. You hire a property manager and live off the $30,000.
Right.
Right. Like,
and you're doing nothing, and
yep.
you can travel as much as you want, and you're always putting money in the bank account every single month.
But you can't get there unless you buy that first one and take that risk.
It's time.
Yep.
You got to have time in the market.
Yep.
And it's like, it's not always, people think too often, Drew, that people bought at the perfect time, right? And that's why. Well, yeah, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
But not nobody. Most people don't buy where it's just amazing. It's an amazing deal.
No, no one person is smarter than the market.
No.
You will not consistently outbeat the market. So for somebody to come in and say, I'm smarter than everybody else in the world and I know how to beat the market and I know when to time it,
you will lose.
You don't. You're going to lose.
Yeah.
So, but that mindset you're talking about and that fear, that gut punch.
Yeah.
I think first-time homebuyers are afraid of that too.
Yeah.
Especially when they're comfortable with rent, they're comfortable with a big amount in savings that they've been working hard for, and they just are too caught up in that scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
They're just that fear of, is it enough? Is this going to work?
Yeah.
What? And now I have a mortgage payment.
How's it going to work out?
Hashtag adulting. That's hard.
Yeah.
Like, how does this work?
Am I ready? It's majority of people that make it work, though.
But if you don't take that risk, like my first house, I had that same feeling. I went from, I was paying $900 a month in rent to a mortgage payment that was $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
And but if you followed my money, like I did this for a high school presentation I did up at Cedar High a couple months ago. I initially bought my house with 10% down. So I put $30,000 into it. 2 years later, I sold it. And I got, I think, about $80,000 out when I sold it. Put that down on my next house. Well, then the market went up. Right? I'm not trying to time it. The market went up. My house suddenly appreciated in value, and I was able to pull out a second mortgage from the bank, a home equity line. I took the money from that home equity line and I lent it to somebody on a hard money loan. Over a 2-year period on that one loan, I made $90,000.
Yeah.
So that,
how much was the initial loan, if you don't mind me asking, the HELOC?
$250,000.
Okay. And you made $90,000 on that $250 in 2 years.
In 2 years.
Heck yeah.
Passive income.
Yeah. Well, it's about as passive as you get.
Yeah.
You don't do a dang thing except sign a couple papers.
Yeah. And my risk on it was nothing.
You almost wanted him to lose, probably, because if you did, you won bigger.
No, well,
and hard money.
I would have gotten paid back either way. It actually went down the worst road it possibly could have, but even my attorney was like, "You're in a good spot. You're fine.
Yeah.
A home's worth a lot more than what you put into it."
Yeah.
So, Yeah, but that initial $30,000 turned into the opportunity to buy a bigger house for my family that we could live in the rest of our life.
Yeah.
Which then turned in an opportunity to make $90,000 passively over 2 years. Like, I wouldn't have had that had I not bought my first house.
Yeah.
And taken that risk and pushed through that gut punch of,
yeah,
but I'm not even paying $1,000 a month, and now I'm going over 1,000. That's just tough. Like, I've been there, I get it, but it's so life-changing when you can get in the market and just watch your money start working for you.
Dude, and I know there's people right now that are going, yeah, well, easy for you to say your payment was only $1,500. Now my payment's $2,500. It's like, it's the same thing.
Yeah. But yeah, my rent was $900 though. And their rent today is probably $1,500.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's the same thing. It's always going to feel the way that you felt.
Yep.
Forget about the numbers, whether it's 15 to 25. Like, that's so small. We're talking about $1,000. The market is different. But you got to get in. I would say get in as soon as you feasibly can, and even push a little bit. It's amazing, like, how protected we, like, I don't know. I just feel like if you have a brain in two hands in today's world, especially in Utah, you're going to go find a way to make money. Like, my little girl went and sold cookies and made like $200. Like, if people are worried about making an extra $200 a month.
Yeah.
Go sell cookies on the corner, freak. Like, go find a way to go make $200. And in fact, what if you could find a way to make $2,000 a month extra? That's not that hard. Go flip furniture like I did when I started out. I made about $2,000 a month just going on Craigslist and KSL and all this Facebook Marketplace, finding free furniture, flipping it. Made like $2,000 a month when we started out as being married. Go do that. It's so easy. Yep. And you have zero risk. You get the furniture for free.
If there's a will, there's a way.
There's a way. Freak. Let's end with this one. I want to end with this. This is first-time home buyers. You kind of touched on it. I don't know where, but it spurred the thought. Parents are always going to get involved with first-time home buyers. How does a first-time home buyer that's young, that maybe has a parent or parents that are very conservative, scarcity mindset, how do they push through that, Drew? Like, can they? Do they? Who does? I know there are people that do. How do they push through that?
Man, that's a tough one, but I've been in their shoes. Like, my parents are millionaire next door.
Yeah.
Like, live by that book. 20% into savings every month, live like we're poor. We had cash envelopes a lot of months. Like, that's their budget. They took it in cash, put it in these envelopes in my mom's drawer. And when the money was gone, money was gone.
Dang.
So whether it was food or eating out or whatever or sports, the money was gone. We couldn't go do the thing because there's no money left. So it's possible you can push through it, but you've got to have healthy boundaries. One, you've got to know, like, this is my life. I've got to put some trust in myself, take a little risk on myself. And what worked for mom and dad might not work for me. It's a totally different day and age today.
Yeah.
But I think also just making sure, I think a lot of times parents just want to know that you've thought about it. That you're not just, hey, I saw a cool house and now I want to buy it.
That's a good point.
But, like, I've actually sat down, I've looked at my budget. I've gone through the numbers. I've been saving. I know I can afford this. It's a good neighborhood. It's a good school. Like, it lines up with my vision for my family and for myself. Yeah. And so I think if you come to your parents, like, with a plan, with forethought, they're going to be a lot more supportive than, hey, we're buying a house. Just thought I should let you know. Yeah. Can you help me move?
Yeah. I honestly, this is a plug, but it's important for people to leverage professionals like us that have seen it. Yeah. And I know that's a pat on the back, but it's true.
You get what you pay for.
So much value. We've seen so much over the years, and it's so much value that we can add to them to be able to help them through those things. And the other thing that I'll say about both of us is we're not going to get somebody in a situation that we really think is a bad situation. I know that for sure, that neither you or I would do that.
Yeah, and we're pushing harder on this podcast, in this conversation about how important it is for somebody to buy and invest in real estate and pull the trigger than I do in my office.
Yeah.
If I'm meeting with somebody in my office, I genuinely want them to make that smart decision. And so typically the questions I ask them isn't, how big is the house you want to buy? How much is it? Well, here's your max payment, so let's push that. I know a lot of loan officers that's where they start, but that's not my tactic. My tactic is, what's your budget? What can you afford?
Right.
And it's interesting, the responses, because sometimes I get I have no idea. And other times I get we're thinking between 25 and 27.
Yeah.
That tells me a lot about a person, and that they've put some forethought, that they're ready for this, that they've been preparing. And this isn't just I saw a cool house and I thought I'd see if I could buy it.
Solid.
And so I really don't try to push my clients and force them into buying something. I want them to be comfortable with the numbers so that they can make an educated and informed decision for themselves.
Yep. I love it.
And I know you work the same way too. Like, we're not here to push people into buying. We're here to help them make sure they have all the information, make sure they know the dangers, the pros, the cons, so that they can make a informed decision for themselves.
Yeah. I'm going to end with this story. Okay. Because it goes along perfectly with what you just said. I think it's so good what you just said. I had a buyer. This was in like end of 2020, beginning of 2021, I want to say. She just gotten a divorce. She got a lump sum. So the market had appreciated decent, but they'd bought years before. So she pulled out, let's say, 60 grand. So they made like 120. She got 60 from her divorce when they sold this townhome. She came to me I sold that for him. She came to me about 3 months after that and said, Eric, I'm nervous. She kind of worries. It's just me. I don't know if I'm going to get married again. I'm in this weird space, but I just feel like I should be getting into something. And I'm scared and I don't know what to do. What do you think? And I was like, it's a no-brainer. And rates at that time, whatever time it was, I think she ended up with like
2020, they'd have been in the twos.
Whatever time it was, I think she got like high threes.
Okay.
And or mid to high threes, something like that. And I'm like, it's a no-brainer. Like, you should definitely go look. So we got her a little house with a casita for around 400 grand, which is hard to find. You won't find it right now.
Nope.
She's renting that casita out for about $900 to $1,000 a month. She was worried about her payment because her payment was going to be running about $2,500 and it was just her. She's a nurse, so she makes pretty good money. She could afford it, but she's like, should I get a renter? Can I actually do it? Like, I don't know, kind of doubting herself. In those situations, Drew, I do push them because I know it's going to work. I know it is. In that situation, I knew it was going to work and I knew it would be good for her. So I pushed her. I didn't make the decision for her. I didn't force her to. I'm not saying any of that.
No, and she was looking for advice. She's like, I have this fear, that same pit in my stomach we've been talking about, that everybody gets. Even a gal who's owned a home before, she still got it. But
I remember her calling me, Drew, and saying, I've been up all night. I'm freaking out about this. Please just reassure me. She was under contract on it. And I was like, as if I was across from her, looking her straight in the eye, like, you will be fine. She just called me, Drew, like, I don't know, not very long ago. And she was like, oh no, I think it was a voice text. She said, Eric, I haven't ever told you this, but you pushing me to be able to go buy that house has totally changed my life. My payment now is like nothing. It's so easy. I've now gained like $100,000 to $120,000 in extra equity. Other than, I've doubled my investment from what I put into it in like a couple years. You've changed my life forever. I'm on a trajectory that I would not have been had I not listened to you. Thank you for pushing me. And those situations, I will push people, but I'm never going to make the decision for them. So that's why I think it's important to be able to align with people that you vibe with that are going to push you, because it's actually putting us in a vulnerable spot. And so I'm very careful when I push people. I'm now setting myself up for a win-lose. If they don't do well, I'm vulnerable. They could come back to me and say, you told me to do this and now I'm bankrupt, blah, blah, blah. I think that's why a lot of parents say don't do it, because they're in a win-win. If they don't do it, or if they, let's say they choose to do it and it works out, they're happy for their kid. It's a win. If they get into it and they go bankrupt, then they can say, I told you so, and it's a win. I want to align myself with people in my life, and I hope these people listening do too, where you'll get people in your life that will tell you the damn truth. And they'll set themselves up and tell you the truth as professionals and tell you whether it's a win-lose situation. Well, they'll put themselves in a win-lose situation and tell you the truth. Because if you don't perform, which they have no control over, if she didn't find a renter on her own, then she may have been paying another $1,000 a month. like it's setting myself up to be vulnerable.
Yep.
But I'm willing to do that for people that I think that have what it takes. So anyway, I just want to end with that thought. I think it's important to be able to hire people that have your best interest, because her life is going to be completely different the rest of her life.
And professionals that are in it, doing it on a daily basis, that have seen a lot.
Yeah.
So we know how to navigate the process, because there's a lot to the home buying process.
Yes.
There's title companies, there's home inspectors, there's appraisers, realtors, lenders. Like, there are a lot of moving parts that people don't see. There's a lot of things in the contract that people aren't aware of. Deadlines, when does our earnest money go hard? Where do I deposit the earnest money? There's a lot of this stuff that to you and I is simple. It's second nature.
Yeah.
How do we handle repairs from the home inspection? A lot of people just aren't going to know how to navigate that. And if I just be careful who you're hiring, and make sure you're working with somebody who is at the top of their field, that knows what they're doing, that like, and trust.
Yep. Yeah. Love it. Drew, thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, thanks for
This was
having me.
good.
This
I
was
hope
fun.
I hope people listen to this one. I think they will, and I hope they listen through the whole thing, because I think there's some good stuff mindset wise to be able to help people. There's so many people that are interested in real estate, especially in Utah. So appreciate you coming on, guys. If you feel like you like this episode and it would benefit somebody that you know, share it with people. I mentioned Drew a couple times on my podcast. He's actually sponsored the podcast, so look him up. Mortgage Drew. He does an excellent job. Like I said, top 1% in the country. And he does a lot of volume. He's got a lot of knowledge. So use him. I highly recommend him if you're looking to get a mortgage on a house. So also want to thank Holbrook Pickleball for sponsoring the podcast. Appreciate them. And we'll see you in the next episode, guys. Thanks for listening.